When people talk about great warriors in history, they mention Napoleon, Alexander the Great, or Julius Caesar. But what about Africa? This continent produced some of the fiercest, smartest, and most fearless warriors the world has ever seen. Kings, queens, and generals who faced down empires and won battles that changed history. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 greatest African warriors. And trust me, by the end, you'll never look at African history the same way again. At number 10, we have Muhammad Ahmed, the Mahdi of Sudan. In the late 1800s, Egypt and Britain tried to control Sudan. But one man stood in their way, Muhammad Ahmed, who claimed he was the prophesied Mahdi. What began as a spiritual mission exploded into a full-blown revolution. Ahmed united diverse Sudanese tribes and created a formidable, modest army, blending faith with firepower. He wasn't just fighting colonizers. He was rejecting the idea that outsiders could define Sudan's future. His biggest triumph? The Battle of Khartoum. His forces besieged the British stronghold for 10 months. When the city fell, General Gordon was killed, sending shockwaves through Europe. Ahmed died shortly after, but his rebellion sparked the longest anti-colonial war of that century in the region. Sudan had spoken, and the British listened nervously. At number 9, we have Bureh of Sierra Leone. When the British imposed a hut tax in Sierra Leone, it wasn't just about money, it was a symbol of control. Bureh, a warrior chief and spiritual leader, refused to bow. He launched the hut tax war, ambushing colonial troops in the forests and rivers. He used guerrilla warfare tactics years before they became globally recognized. His warriors were low on firearms but high on knowledge of the terrain. British troops were forced into retreat multiple times, humiliated by what they called bush tactics. Even when captured, Bureh refused to apologize. His fight wasn't just about taxes, it was about sovereignty, and that made him dangerous in the eyes of empire. At number 8, we have Kandake Amanirenas of Nubia. Rome had just annexed Egypt. Emperor Augustus thought Nubia would be next, but he didn't count on facing Kandake Amanirenas, the warrior queen of Meroe. She didn't wait for Rome to strike first. She launched a preemptive invasion into Roman Egypt, capturing forts and even decapitating a statue of Augustus. Amanirenas lost an eye in battle but continued leading her army, earning her the title, the Blind Queen. Rome sent reinforcements but couldn't crush her spirit or her people. She negotiated a peace that favored Nubia. No taxes, no Roman rule. She remains one of the few rulers in history to force Rome into a diplomatic retreat. At number 7 is Mansa Suleiman of Mali. While Mansa Musa dazzled the world with gold, his brother Mansa Suleiman held the empire together during chaos. After Musa's death, enemies within and outside the kingdom plotted to divide Mali. Suleiman didn't lead flashy campaigns. He led defensive wars against Tuareg raiders in the north and internal coup attempts. He was the shield after Musa's golden spear. His most famous move? Stripping disloyal nobles of power and redistributing land to loyalists, avoiding a civil war that could have broken Mali's back. His reign stabilized the empire and preserved its institutions, making him one of Mali's most underestimated warrior kings. At number 6, we have Hannibal Barca of Carthage. Born in what's now Tunisia, Hannibal Barca swore as a child to fight Rome. At age 29, he led one of the boldest military campaigns in history, the Second Punic War. He crossed the Alps with war elephants and 90,000 men, a move so daring, Roman generals thought it was impossible. Then he beat Rome in their own territory at the Battle of Cannae. There, he encircled and destroyed 50,000 Roman troops. No African general before or after has humiliated Rome like Hannibal did. Though he never took Rome itself, his strategies are still studied in military academies. Napoleon called him the father of military genius. By the way, if you want to dive deeper into the lives of these powerful African warriors, check the description below. I've added links to books, documentaries, and resources I personally recommend. At number 5 is Yaa Asantewaa of Ghana. When the British exiled the Ashanti king and demanded the Golden Stool, the soul of the Ashanti people, Yaa Asantewaa, a queen mother, rose up. She led the War of the Golden Stool. She rallied thousands of warriors, many of them women, and stormed British forts. For months, she held them back with sheer determination, spiritual resolve, and traditional warfare. Even as British reinforcements arrived, her forces continued the fight. Her last stand was heroic. Though she was captured, she lit the flame of Ghanaian nationalism. Today, she's remembered not just as a warrior, but as a mother who fought for generations unborn. At number 4 is Samori Ture of the Wassoulou Empire. Samori Ture saw what the French were doing across West Africa, and he refused to be next. He created a professional army and resisted colonization for 16 years. His greatest weapon wasn't just force, it was mobility. When the French tried to trap him, he'd relocate entire cities overnight. His people moved as one, soldiers, families, livestock, all. His war of resistance saw over 38 major battles, including decisive victories in Ouagadougou and Bureh. His ability to organize and adapt made him nearly unbeatable. Even after capture, he never betrayed his people. In death, he became a martyr for independence movements across Africa. At number 3 is Taharqa of Kush in Egypt. Taharqa was a pharaoh from the kingdom of Kush, who ruled both Nubia and Egypt. His reign marked one of the few times when black African rulers controlled both Upper and Lower Egypt. When the Assyrians invaded, Taharqa led multiple military campaigns, defending sacred Nile territory from some of the world's most powerful armies. He lost ground over time, but never gave up sovereignty. His legacy wasn't just survival, it was cultural fusion, rebuilding temples and preserving African-Egyptian identity. Taharqa was both sword and scholar, and his name still echoes in ancient inscriptions across Sudan and Egypt. At number 2 is Queen Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba. Portugal wanted Angola. They brought slavery, guns, and conversion. But Queen Nzinga brought resistance. When they demanded tribute, she refused to kneel, famously placing a servant as her chair. She converted to Christianity to delay war, but trained troops behind the scenes. When Portugal attacked, she struck back, aligning with the Dutch, using guerrilla tactics and fortifying her borders. For 40 years, she fought off Portuguese invasion. No queen in African history outwitted European powers as consistently and decisively as Nzinga. She died peacefully in her bed. That alone was a victory in a world where most warriors fall on the battlefield. At number 1 is Shaka Zulu of the Zulu Kingdom. Shaka Zulu was more than a warrior. He was a military revolution. Born into exile, he rose to power by building the most feared army in southern Africa. He introduced the short stabbing spear, close combat techniques, and forced march training. His bullhorn formation crushed enemies with calculated brutality. Shaka didn't just win battles, he changed warfare itself. His campaigns united over 100 tribes under the Zulu banner, creating a nation from fragments. Even after his assassination, his tactics were adopted by other African nations and respected by British officers. He turned warriors into legends and Africa into a battlefield empire. These warriors didn't just make history, they reshaped it. If you learned something new today, hit that like button, subscribe for more untold African stories, and don't forget to check the description for links to books and documentaries that bring these legends to life.